Right, I'm going to hand you over to Nick Harris, who is our Managing Director at Replay Maintenance. Also on the call today is Tim Brooks, who is our Sales Manager as well.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us on our first webinar that we've ever done in this regard. So we are going to be running these on a monthly basis, just with little bits of snippets that hopefully will give you guys some guidance on how to better maintain the surfaces that you've got under your management. So today we're going to, as Michelle's talked about, we're going to be talking about autumn and winter maintenance and just running a few little tips that we would advise. And as Michelle alluded to, hopefully any questions you've got, feel free to flag them to Michelle and she can raise them with us, or we can have a bit of an open discussion, or if you've got any specific questions at the end as well, we'll be happy to answer any of those. So next slide, Michelle. Yeah, a little bit of order of play today, what we're going to run through. So intros, myself and Michelle as intros. So Tim, just want to say hello just before you take a drink there?
Yeah, sure. Morning, everybody. My name's Tim Brooks. Some of you may have actually spoken to myself or been on email conversation over the last few years. I'm the sales manager here at Replay, generally in the office 5 days a week. So hopefully be able to speak to you about some questions and queries after the session today. But yeah, I've been here about 5 years and really enjoy what I do.
Thank you, Tim. So yeah, this is the order of play. Then we've done the intros. We'll talk about the top tips, some common issues we come across as a maintenance contractor, and then how we look to resolve those. Little snippets of us. So top tips. First off, really, the key thing as to what we're looking to achieve by certainly going through the presentation, but ultimately as you as facility management, is that the key aspects to look after for winter maintenance is obviously, first one is player safety. You've got a facility that is being used by lots of different players of all ages, and safety is paramount. So you can't have access to a facility unless it's safe to play on. So that should always be your first requisite with regards to making sure the facility is ready and open to play. Secondly, obviously increasing the life of the carpet. So carrying out good maintenance at this time of the year will always extend the life of your carpet, which means your return on investment is going to be a lot greater. The more months, years that you can get out of your surface, the more money you can save and revenue you can achieve to purchase your new one in the future. Reduce the risk of damage as well. So keeping the facility safe and playable reduces the risk of damage to property and to the surface itself. So good maintenance ensures that you can repair things before they become too expensive to look after, so reduce that risk. Decrease contamination. So again, this time of year, with the type of weather we get, the contamination that builds up over the surface, particularly after a very dry and hot summer, with the dust and detritus that accumulates in the carpet, it can't go anywhere. So that increases contamination within the carpet. So improving your maintenance alleviates that contamination from the carpet and keeps it free draining, and ultimately saves you money. That's the end goal as well, is to save money, so these don't become expensive burdens on you as facility operators. Next slide, Michelle. So what is important to do on a daily basis is, particularly this time of year with the inclement weather that we get, is risk assess the surface. Is it safe to use in the first instance, and who is responsible for making this decision? So if you've got a health and safety officer, do they provide guidelines for you guys to inspect the surface, or for your site manager to go out and inspect and ensure that the surface is safe to open and be used by your players. So it's therefore very important that you have a daily inspection, particularly again this time of year. If you've had evening use from last night, that somebody's gone out this morning and ensured that everything's been checked from the surface, the equipment, the access, the egress, that all of those areas have been referenced. Are the floodlights working correctly? Are the goals in good order? So it's very important there's a structure of a daily inspection and that somebody's designated to carry it out. That then can form a very good part of your daily risk assessment, that the surfaces and the facility is safe to use and safe for your players to use and also to rent out in the evening. Keeping good records then, again, should somebody get injured in this particular type of year when there's heavy usage on a facility and there is risk of wetness or even to a degree frost or ice, keeping a good record that you've carried out your daily inspection, that you've kept your maintenance in order, it is a very good reference point for protecting facility operators against potential insurance claims or warranty claims against you as the operator. So good record keeping is very important, and that ties in with both your daily inspections and your maintenance activity. So always important to keep a log of that. And obviously, following these daily inspections, if there is anything that needs to be raised as an issue, needs to be reported through line management up to the ultimate person responsible to make that decision as to whether you keep that facility or open or not. If there's isolated areas on there, do we just corner off an area of that pitch and keep half of it in use, or do we close the whole facility? So they're key decisions that you need to make on a daily basis on a facility, particularly again at this time of year. With reporting any concerns to management, it's then good to have a maintenance plan in place, a contractor such as ourselves, potentially call us and see how quick we can respond to help fix a problem. Thank you, Michelle. So general good housekeeping, what can we do on a basic level to keep the facility safe and usable? So certain things go without saying, daily litter picking. So again, facilities get rented out probably till about 10 p.m. at night. So facility gets closed up. Nobody's really probably got the opportunity to collect litter on a very nightly basis. So first thing in the morning, get out on the facility, go round, litter pick, collect the leaves and debris that no doubt falling on the surface. It's important that this material is removed because these can mulch down into the carpet and in their own right be a slip hazard on the surface, but also can break down and contaminate the actual carpet itself. So it's important that leaf and debris from the surrounding foliage and trees is taken away. Empty bins, so bins get loaded up with the litter. It's important that these don't spill over, that they are emptied on a regular basis. And then your entrance and access points, the matting, if you've got matting in place in front of the gates coming in, and boot brushes. Often on certain facilities is cross contamination if players have been playing on a natural grass facility with their boots and then they're coming on to the artificial pitch, they're likely to be bringing mud and dirt onto the surface. So it's important that you've got the boot brushes and the matting there, that players can utilise those at the gates to take off the dirt and the mud. But similarly, it's important that these areas are cleaned down as well. So either hose down or brush down to remove the build-up of the dirt and detritus that can build upon these areas. And then, as I alluded to earlier, importantly, check floodlights as well. There are guidelines as to lux levels on surfaces and particular play that's carried out on those, particularly with sports like hockey. It's important that the lux levels are at the correct luminar to ensure that the pitch is properly floodlit. This goes back to your record keeping, because we have had instances where facilities have had insurance claims against them because somebody's been injured and they haven't done their daily checks and haven't checked certain things with floodlights, goals and nets as well fall into that. So just general good housekeeping on a routine basis, somebody having a responsibility on a daily basis to check all these areas is key. Thank you, Michelle. So just a few examples. This is really from just over the past few weeks that we've seen ourselves. So leaves, a lot of facilities. You've got a lot of, they're built in nice secluded areas with the trees surrounding them, but trees do create the biggest issue with leaves dropping down onto the pitch. So just what I alluded to earlier, the amount that does accumulate in these few weeks of the sort of October, November, December time can be extraordinary. So it's important that these are bagged up, removed and taken away from site. Otherwise they do mulch down, as I say, create that bit of a slip hazard as well to users, and the risk of injury to players then is not good. Next one, Michelle. And then this kind of gives examples of what not removing the material can lead to is the contamination within the carpet itself. So this alludes back to what I said over a long, dry, hot summer, which we've experienced this past year. Just the natural dust and detritus that are in the airborne settle down into the carpet. They can't go anywhere. They get trapped in the sand or the rubber within the surface, and then we get the wet and cold weather of the autumn and winter. So when the rainfall falls onto the surface, it lifts this dust and dirt and silt out of the carpet and leaves it in deposits on the surface, as you can see there. It's not so obvious on a 3G surface, but you still get this type of problem. But if you have got a 2G surface which is sand filled or sand dressed, and it's probably 5 or more years older, then you're probably likely to start to see this type of problem occurring. It should be pointed out, it can all be resolved with good maintenance and reactive measures if needs be. Contamination from pitch users. So this goes back to what we're alluding to with keeping the entrance and access areas clean. So routine players coming in through one access point starts to really compact the carpet in these areas. You can see certainly the picture on the left-hand side of the slide there. The pathway down it looks like there's a running water coming down there right onto the surface, and you can see how that mud is quickly spreading over the carpet and spread further into the playing areas if not resolved. So these areas do need to be protected with good clean entrance matting and boot brushes. Thank you, Michelle. If you've got, I'm not sure any of you guys that are on the webinar today have got one of these, but water-based pitches or sand-dressed surfaces do experience algal growth as well. It tends to be that crossover at the end of the summer and the start of autumn with the changing climate, and similarly spring to summer as well. Winter to spring, you get the same scenario. So kind of months of September, October, November, and March and April. The UK climate tends to get a lot of algal growth, and this is predominantly on water-based surfaces. So particularly where they're getting sprayed heavily with water, the water presents a lovely little growing environment for algae to bloom, and it does quickly spread across the surface. So this is just down at Lee Valley, where the hockey was hosted back in the 2012 Olympic Games, and you can see the colour on the left where the algal growth has spread quite heavily within the carpet. What should always point out though, it can be clean. So that's the after result on the right when we flushed and washed and removed the algal from the surface. So when it's at present, it creates a very slippy surface for players. So it's important that that is removed as it does occur. Thanks, Michelle. So inclement weather, which is, we've experienced that quite heavily over the last couple of weeks, particularly with rainfall, and then the temperature's starting to drop now. So we're going to be experiencing some frost and obviously potential for snow moving in later in the week to certain areas of the country. So the key thing is with all surfaces, when they are built and specified, they're designed to drain at a predetermined rate. Obviously, over time, that's the optimum when they're installed. This will only reduce over time as they start to age. So that's relative to the age that they are, the compaction that occurs in the surface with players playing on there, and ultimately the contamination, the buildup of that contamination all starts to reduce that porosity of the surface. So as we showed earlier, rainfall then on older surfaces can start to result in puddles. These puddles eventually drain away and they leave silty and muddy deposits, which we saw on the pictures earlier. These silty and muddy deposits left on the surface, the only real way to react to those is to scrape them off. There's nothing overly technical about getting that type of material off the surface. So you can scrape and remove those with a shovel and a wheelbarrow, not very technical at all. But what it is indicating is a bigger problem within the surface itself that would need to be addressed. Thanks, Michelle. And as I alluded to, snow and ice, and we're going to start to experience some of that coming in. If you've not already, then certainly later this week, temperatures are really dropping. Again, we've had heavy rainfall through the autumn, so these surfaces do retain a lot of moisture within the infill and the carpet itself. So needless to say, that moisture is what freezes within the surface, and it's what creates a hard feeling underfoot, because the sand in a sandfield or sand dress carpet is frozen, and likewise the rubber in a 3G surface, it's the moisture content that's within it that's frozen and hardened it. So what we always try and say, it's a natural cause. So unless it's absolutely necessary, we say don't try to defrost a surface or remove heavy snowfall. The reason these elements can be done, but two reasons. One, they're very costly. So to effectively defrost the surface, you've got to apply a large amount of specialist salt, a pure dried vacuum salt, or a urea content defroster, which both are expensive materials and both can create problems with the surface in the long run. So, and equally, if you've got freeze one night, by spreading this material doesn't necessarily stop it from freezing the following night. So you've got to assess the risk of, is it worth actually doing this, or do we just close the surface for the evening? Thanks, Michelle. So there you go, snow and ice. Going back to what I said earlier, when there's high moisture content within the carpet then freezes and then it snows on it. That's kind of the worst three scenarios you can have, because then the snow starts to insulate the frozen surface underneath, and you'll actually find a natural grass pitch next door will thaw out quicker than your artificial sports pitch. And we always say, a lot of people sell these things as all weather. So players ask, why can't we play on the all weather surface? So that they're not all weather, they're more weather. The one condition they can't really cope with compared to natural surfaces is snow and ice. And as you can see there, we've got a blanket of snow all over the surface, which will take longer to thaw out than if it was on the natural grass pitch next door. Thanks, Michelle. If you do decide to move it, this is the problem that can occur. So this is a site we look after up in the northwest. The client themselves needed to get a match game on there on a Saturday, so decided to get a snow shovel in on the front of a tractor and basically remove the top layer of snow to the side of the pitch. The problem with doing that, they got the game on, they played it, but what they neglected was the fact that by removing the snow that settled into the surface, you're also removing a lot of the infill from the carpet. So once that snow thaws out on the left hand side there, you'll be left with just a big pile of rubber that should be in the playing surface providing the correct player performance characteristics. So yeah, not advisable because of the potential damage it can do to the surface by removing the rubber, and also leaving players at risk that there's not enough infill there to provide the correct shock absorbency to be playing on the carpet. So unless it's absolutely necessary, really advise just let the snow thaw away naturally, and unfortunately you have to close the facility during that period as it does. Thanks, Michelle. Again, another issue during autumn months in particular is going back to what I mentioned earlier about algae is moss. So again, a lot of facilities with shading around the perimeter or the shadows that overhanging trees and bushes can create, and ultimately the sides and the edges of the pitch being unplayed does provide a nice little growing environment for moss to quickly take hold and spread. So again, it's important with your routine maintenance program that you treat the moss, so spray it to kill it, and then it's brushed out the carpet, because if it remains, it again builds up as a contaminant within the surface and will affect the drainage. If it's left untreated, obviously it becomes quite a hazardous slip area for players to be going over into these areas. So moss, once you've treated it, it kills it, remove it, it will go away, but it will start to grow back importantly. So always remember, dealing with moss is a year-round issue, predominantly again, particularly in the autumn, the summer to autumn split, and then the winter to spring, those sort of months of September, October, November, and March, April, May are the key months where moss will grow and take hold. So they should be your key treatment seasons, but please be aware it will always grow back. It's always part of your ongoing maintenance program to look after this. Thanks, Michelle. And also little video clip here, darker evenings. It's obviously 4 o'clock at night. It's pretty much dark out there till about 8 o'clock in the morning. So it does expose your facilities to potentially more risk from people that want to cause damage. Kids getting bundled together where you can't necessarily see them in the dark, and setting light to the, in this instance, that dividing netting that you can see that splits the pitches, set a light to that, spreads onto the wooden kickboards, and just set light to everything, even the carpet there. So it does increase that antisocial behaviour with darker nights. We do know that just from the inquiries that we get with general vandalism to facilities. So please be aware of that. Hence, if you can get cameras set up on site or have a manager present on site, or even security that can keep an eye on these things, it all forms part of your good facility management and your process during the autumn winter months. Thanks, Michelle. So that's me rapid fire through a few top tips of autumn winter maintenance. I'm just going to pass you over to Tim now. That's just going to run through a quick case study of a client we've had a facility that they thought was pretty much unusable, but this is just to demonstrate what can be done. So over to you, Tim.
Thank you, Nick. If you can show the first slide, please, Michelle. I feel like I'm on a COVID show or something. So this is a private tennis court that the owner of the property approached us, and you can see hopefully clearly on the pictures it was covered in moss. They'd made an attempt in a certain area, which you can sort of see a little bit greener, to remove some of the problem. It was virtually unusable, and they initially approached us to resurface, but we said, look, we can have a look at it, we can see what we can do for you. They'd use a jet wash, which is not ideal for this type of surface and not something we'd recommend. Trying to remove moss and dirt using a jet wash, it just forces the muck and dirt further into the carpet, and it don't really go anywhere. If you've ever jet washed a patio, you'll know the water sits on the concrete and the slabs, and then you sweep it off. You haven't got the same type of textured surface that you have on a patio as a artificial grass court. So you don't have the ability to be able to do that. So unfortunately, it didn't work very well, and it took them days to just clean that little area. The second picture shows we actually went in. Sorry, can you go back one? Sorry, Michelle, can you go back one, please? Thank you. It's just covered in frost. So we'd been in, and we actually needed to pre-treat the moss to kill it off, because it's far easier to remove, far easier for our systems and processes that we do use to remove dead moss. If it's green, it attaches itself to anything. You'll have all seen moss on a roof. There's not much soil up there. The same principle goes with these artificial pitches. There's not a lot of soil in them. They do get the muck and dirt that accumulates over the years, and it's enough ground or enough to germinate the moss on the actual carpet itself. So we went in to pre-treat it, and it was covered in frost. We were still able to do that because it helps it absorb into the moss itself and kill it off. Next slide, please, Michelle. So this is part of the process after 2 weeks after the pre-treatment to kill off the moss. So we're using a process there, just what we call our renovate process, which is the initial removal of the dead moss off the top of the surface before we even start to get to the issues with the drainage. And you can see the colour of the muck and dirt that's coming out of there. It's a lot darker colour than the green live moss that you'd expect to see. So we know it's been killed off at that point, and we're able to get rid of it. And we have skips on site to get rid of that extraction process. We have the next slide, please, Michelle. Then we can get on to the compressed air rejuvenation, which is the main reason we're there. So what we're looking to do there is extract all the muck, the dirt, the contamination and dirty sand effectively that's within that carpet, because that's what's causing the problem with the drainage. It gets stuck between the blades of grass. It's there to help support the fibres, protect the carpet, make it last longer, but it also acts like a filtration system. And all that muck and dirt that Nick mentioned earlier that's been accumulating over the summer and landing on surfaces and over a number of years in this instance is causing problems with that drainage system and helping the moss grow and stopping the water going through it. So we need to extract it all. And how we do that is a compressed air process. It's called rejuvenation. We've been doing it over 20 years and it just extracts it all. You can see that muck and dirt coming out on the side of the machine in the first picture on the left hand side. That's then taken off the surface. We then go over the surface again to collect any sort of residue left behind with a sweeper collector. And you can see the difference in the colour. It's dirty sand that we're extracting. The sand that goes back in is New Silica's kiln dried sports sand. So it's spherical in shape, which helps the drainage, support the fibres, and effectively you reset that drainage system to, in inverted commas, as new, because obviously the carpet is still going to be 10, 15, 20 years old, subject to the age of the original carpet itself. Can I have the next slide, please, Michelle? So this is what it looks like on completion. Now, it does look quite heavy sand-wise. That's normal. You always expect to see that, because when we apply the new sports sand and it's regulated within the carpet, it does take a little while to dress down into it. So with play, the weather, drag mat in it, it'll help the carpet absorb the sand, if you like, and it get down to those lower levels where it should be. So it does often look quite heavily sanded straight after the rejuvenation. We haven't even put the tennis nets up on this picture, so you can see, as I say, it's just really just been sanded in. Hopefully on the next slide, you can see it after we've returned and continued with ongoing maintenance to the site. If you could move on for me, Michelle, please. You can see there, it looks far better. It looks a nice, almost new surface. We've got some lovely tennis chairs there as well. And this customer is a continued ongoing maintenance customer after the original rejuvenation that we carried out. I'm very happy with the works we've completed too. We expect this process extend the life of the courts by 5 years, 3-5 years, some are 8 years. It varies depending on, we have recommended ongoing maintenance, so we expect it to last up to 5 years, if not more. But it does vary subject to maintenance carried out, even footwear that goes onto a surface and where it sits, within the country and surrounding areas. So it does vary, but this customer is very happy and we're still continuing ongoing maintenance. And I think that's it for this one.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. Just to interrupt on you there, I think what we should point out, that was obviously a tennis court, a sand-filled tennis court. The principle applies if you've got a sand-filled full-size hockey pitch or sand-dressed even. The principle is exactly the same. That as dirty as the surface can become and as mossy and contaminated as it become, there's 3 criteria we always look at. As long as there's still enough pile depth on the carpet itself, that the carpet itself is still in good condition, that the construction's good, as in the seams and the lines and the base underneath are good, then and the age of it is still within reason, and rejuvenation is always an option for facilities that, and as Tim alluded to at least get another 3 years, if not beyond that with 5. And we've got some instances where we've got 7 or 8 years out of a facility. Some have actually been rejuvenated. Sorry, go back one step. Most facilities get rejuvenated once in their lifetime, but we've now got facilities where we've done them twice, and we've got a facility coming up where we'll be doing it for the 3rd time, and it's at 20 years of age. So the criteria is, as long as there's enough pile height on the carpet and its overall construction is good. The issue is if it's just contamination, that can always be dealt with our rejuvenation process and other options that we provide customers with as well. So just to make people aware of that.
Right, well, lovely. Thank you very much for sharing that, Nick and Tim. We're going to open up to the floor now. If anybody has any questions or anything that they would like to ask our team, feel free to shout out. In the meantime, I've got a question. So you said about kind of the moss treatments and things. What if they have a school or something where kind of children are present? They obviously don't want you to go straight on the pitch and spray chemicals and things. What is it that you use? And is the pitch playable immediately after a moss treatment?
Yeah, so we use this variety of different products with different levels of effectiveness that you can use to treat moss in particular. If you are spraying in a public areas, we use a product called Algon, which is essentially a vinegar, acetic acid, which is vinegar based as such. The risk to players playing on there, it's a diluted product. It's not going to cause any harm to anybody to be going onto the surface. We always say more so for the effect it has on the moss, allow it to be absorbed for a couple of hours, so don't go straight onto there, more so that it can do work on what it's there to do, which is actually kill the moss that's present. But if players were to go on there straight away, there's no risk or harm to players themselves or pitch users, but it's more ensuring it's going to be effective in the job it's there to do, which is to actually to kill the moss. So it's important that it's allowed that bit of time to soak into the to the plant itself first.
Okay. And in terms of kind of checklists, daily checklists and things, do we have anything that would be helpful to people? Perhaps maybe something like a checklist that they can maybe utilize on their own facilities if they have volunteers coming in and things?
Yeah, I think yeah, we do. Yeah, so we whenever if those that are on the webinar have us coming in doing our services anyway, you'll note that our operatives always do a post maintenance report anyway as part of a routine thing. We have a RAG rating, red, amber, green, depending on what's required. So from those forms that we've kind of tailored those to kind of tailor to be bespoke to what we're looking at when we're on the facility. We'd certainly be happy to provide those to any people that would want that type of format. It's written word, so it's always good. Obviously, this day and age with technology, we provide an app-based process as well, where with our Passport 365 software, where you can actually have a form design that you can do a daily check and just fill it in on a phone, and it's recorded and documented without the need to have a paper copy filed away somewhere. And obviously with the app one, you can take photos as well, so it's always good to document any issues with a photograph. So yeah, by all means, if you're carpet manufacturer or the contractor that built your pitch hasn't provided documentation, then certainly at Replay we're happy to provide information to help you with that.
And as a Replay customer, they have access to that information indefinitely, don't they?
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
All previous visits are logged on that system, aren't they?
That exactly it, yeah. So when we come in, we've got a customer portal. So each visit we do, our operative documents that with before, during and after photos and their maintenance site report form. That's on a secure password access for any client that wants to look into that. They can log in and see all the works we've ever done for our customers. I say all the works going back to 2017. I think it's when we first started the system. So that proves, going back to one of the first slides, we talked about the record keeping. That system there has certainly helped some of our clients against insurance claims for players getting injured on there. Just keeping that documented evidence is always useful to know that you've implemented best practice and you've got record keeping. Accidents will always happen, but it does help protect you there.
Okay. One of the questions has just popped up. How do the customers gain access to that?
I can answer that one. Everybody should be set up with access to it. It may be that the person we've got down as the point of contact may have changed and we've not been advised either by the site, or we've got a different person who's placed the order or on our system to the person who actually probably needs the access. but we can get that set up. So I noticed Kerry asked the question. So what I'll do is I'll check when I get back to my desk and send out the link, which it may land in your spam folder just because there's links on there, etc. It does sometimes find we do that. And also we recommend that you use Google Chrome when you log into the portal. But yeah, I can get that set up for Kerry and anybody else if they need it. You're welcome.
You're welcome, Kerry. Does anybody else have any other questions relating to anything we've spoken about today, or any particular? Paul, do you have a question?
Yes, please. It's Paul Whiteley from Blackpool. We've got a small sports facility of our own. We've got is it Sandress five-a-side facility, which does in our area suffer from a lot of moss. Am I okay to apply the Algon on the Sandress carpet?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the dilution rates of, I think it's 1 to 3 on Algon. So you dilute it to 1 to 3. You can spray it and apply it. The only limitation you get again this time of year is its effectiveness in certain temperatures, and obviously with heavy rain as well. If you apply and then you get heavy rainfall, it dilutes it further. But in terms of spraying it it won't cause any damage to the carpet itself or the surface. It won't cause anything issues there. It's just its effectiveness of spraying. You might need to spray, leave it for 5 to 7 days. If the moss starts to turn brown, then you know it's working. If it's not, it might need a second application just to help it do its job.
And is it okay to apply that particular Algon solution at this time of the year? Now it's going to get quite frosty and cold.
Yeah, it's I tell you what, it's really difficult because when we go out with our guys, we offer a lot of sites. We're only in 4 to 6 times a year, and we have applied in all different types of conditions, and it is somewhat dependent on the kind of local climate to how effective it can be, and the surrounding environment of your facility. So if you've got kickboards surrounding your pitch there and it's slightly insulated, it actually might work better even in these lower temperatures than if you're a more exposed site where you're going to get more wind, rain and coldness actually affecting the surface. So there are guidelines on the Algon specification, and again, if you're already using that product, you can look online and find out the exact specifics of what they recommend in terms of application and temperature and what have you. But from our experience, it does vary depending on where we are and what we're actually doing. And so we would try and apply in these conditions, but mindful that it may not work as effective as it would in slightly warmer conditions when it's not so wet.
Yeah, I know we're in a very exposed and quite wet and windy area on the Fylde coast. Another question on our five-a-side facility. It's the Sandress type. How, in terms of quantities of sand on a general five-a-side netball size pitch area, how much sand would you expect to be applying to that particular surface?
Well, in theory, you should. If it's, how old is the site, Paul? How old?
It's a good 20. It's probably 25 years old. The carpet's been down about.
Yeah, 25. Right. Okay. So, I mean, it's difficult. Would you say it looks? Can you see surface sand at the moment, or is the sand all buried in the carpet?
Just applied about 10 bags. No, probably about 15 bags of kiln dried sand to it recently. To improve the grip.
Yeah. So the sand, I mean, with the surface of your age, it's going to be difficult to be specific as to how much sand you need to apply. It is exactly what you've done, a visible thing, really. Most new surfaces, if it's a Sandress, will be installed with the correct amount of sand in, and different to a 3G where you can naturally see the rubber disperse and migrate out of the surface. Sandress surfaces trap the sand in the carpet, so very rarely do you see the migration or loss of sand. So it's more a bespoke sort of site by site assessment to determine, does it need more. If you feel like the carpet's wearing down, that's really what the sand's there for, is to protect the carpet from wearing down.
So there's no hard and fast rule as to how much I should apply and how much shouldn't. Yeah.
No, it's just, again, taking that assessment of a risk, and if you're applying too much, is it going to potentially create a slip hazard on the surface rather than actually kind of prevent slipping, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think I prefer to apply more sand than less sand, because I did get a 20, was it 20 bags or 40? I think it's 40 bags of sand I got. So
yeah.
And Tim is always the happy recipient of photos. If you need any advice, Paul, feel free to send them over to him if you need any help.
In our area, it's the problem with moss more than anything else, really. That's our issue.
Yeah. So moss, all you can do with moss is treat it, just brush it. It always starts to grow around the edges. So people always think that you need to brush where the players play. In a lot of ways, the players are agitating the carpet. Correct. So it's not so important to brush there. You need to brush around the unused areas to agitate the carpet, because that will stop the moss from taking hold and growing in the first place. So spraying it and then regularly brushing it is a good way of doing it. We're not here just to sell our services, but we've got an equipment website where we've sourced some kind of relatively low priced power brushes that are very good at just going around the perimeter edges of small surfaces like you've got there, Paul. If it's a mugger netball court sized area, just a power brush that can really agitate the carpet and stop that moss from taking hold.
I did manage to sort of scrape it up, sort of shovel it away, because it was quite soft, the moss, so I was able to leave it off and take it away. But because we're similar next to it, we've got a hard surface tennis court, and that also suffers a lot of moss as well, so ingression of moss. So I was to apply the Algon to that area as well to try and alleviate.
Yeah. That with tarmac slightly different. The spraying it should in theory kill it, but you can always power wash a tarmac courts. Going back to what Tim showed, our example of the tennis court where the client had tried to power wash that when it's sand, is very difficult. But on a tarmac court, power washing is definitely, once you've treated it, power wash the surface down to remove the moss.
Thanks for that, Nick. That's great.
Okay.
Right. Do we have any more final questions before we wrap up today? Anybody else? No? Okay. So thank you very much for joining us today. Just to let you know that the next session in January is on the 17th of January, and you can book that by going on to ticketsource.co.uk/replay-maintenance. You can book your spots on there. Again, feel free to forward the link on to anybody you think might be interested in attending. They don't have to be Replay customers at all. Just attend, and any questions that you'd like to submit beforehand, we will cover them in the session. My email address is Michelle, MICHELLE.Thomas, THOMAS @replay-maintenance.co.uk. Okay, thank you very much for joining us today, and hopefully we'll see you at the January one. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.